matches. Does anybody even use these anymore? Or should you even use these when you're out in the outdoors? Let's cover the topic of matches, pros, cons, and I'm also excited to share with you a little bit of an experiment that I'm going to do later on involving this metal can of very old matches. Let's get into it. Tiger Streamer asked me a question on a recent video, and he was asking, he says, I'm curious about the matches you have. Are those hurricane or storm matches? Could you maybe talk about those in an upcoming video? So let's do that now. What he's talking about, he's referencing a video that I put out, and I'll show you the clip right now. I'm reaching down with a match, and you can clearly see that it's not an ordinary match. Yes, that is a stormproof match, and it is this match right here. That's a UCO match. And UCO makes multiple different types of matches, not just this one. They have a lot of different kinds. This one here, actually, they make two that are exactly the same. One is like double the size. And this is a stormproof match. Stormproof in the sense that you can light it in the pouring rain and won't go out. High winds is very resistant to windy conditions. And it's an excellent match. Very, very good. And this particular one, I believe, is a 15-second burn. And I use these in my outdoor adventures, but not all the time. And we're going to cover that right now. What do I use and when do I use it and should you use it and so on. Now, there are other brands out there. Zippo makes a stormproof match. I have never used a Zippo brand, so I can't elaborate on how functional they are, but we all know that Zippo, they have such a good reputation for making good products. I would anticipate that it is a good quality match. There are other brands out there. I remember back in the day, Coghlan's was making a stormproof match, and the Coghlan's brand was, I mean, it was a match, and quite honestly, the Coghlan's brand, this is not it here, but this is just a regular standard match, and this regular standard match was just about as good as the Coghlan's brand of stormproof matches. They weren't nothing to write home about. They certainly don't hold up to one of these things, that's for sure. And of course, there are other companies out there who make them. Now, I brought a glass of water with me. I'm going to show you about the UCO match. We'll start with, let's light one first, and then we'll cover pros and cons. And actually, let's start with the one con right off the bat. And that is, with these stormproof matches, they are not to be confused with strike anywhere matches. And the con is you have to carry the little striking pad. If you don't have this striking pad, this match is useless. So you have to remember to carry that. Now, just off to the side, I have here a can, a metal can of beaver nuts. In my can of beaver nuts, I have some stormproof matches, or not stormproof. I have some strike anywhere matches, and these matches I'm estimating to be approximately 40 years old, and we're going to test these. I'm excited to do this with you guys, by the way. We're going to test these and see if they still do what they're supposed to do. Are they still good after what I'm estimating to be 40 years? But that'll come later in the video. All right, let's go back to the UCO. Very simple. You see how that match struggled a little bit? Look at that smoke. Boy, you can just imagine the chemicals that's in there to do that. So I stuck it in that glass, pulled it out, and it revitalized itself, and it continued to burn. There was a lag there, and I'm going to talk about that. So I keep those UCO matches in a stormproof container, or waterproof container, to keep them protected, so that if I need them, when I need them, they're nice and dry. So the pros to the stormproof matches is obvious. You can light them in a storm. And they're pretty reliable. However, I have used these UCO matches, and this container is not from UCO, by the way. That's just a Amazon purchase thing. But these matches, I have had them where they didn't work, where it took 3-4 matches before it would light and stay lit. And I was a little bit confused about that, and I pondered on why that was, because these things are supposed to be so great. And what I discovered, my conclusion was they were old. And I think that's going to be the biggest downfall for these matches, is I believe that these matches over time, they degrade. And when they do, they reach a point where they're no longer reliable. So it's a catch-22, because these things are very expensive. And you buy these, at least I bought them, to put into my kits or whatever to use. And stormproof matches, I use them in the sense of when things are really ugly, weather conditions are really, really bad, you can pull out these matches. But if they're 4 or 5 years old, they may not be performing the way they're supposed to anymore. And I ran into that problem. And that's what my conclusion was they're simply old. Now, just a side note, I'm going to show you a clip right now. I dug deep in the video archives, and I show you a clip on another method from which I use these matches. And I'll show you that right now. You can see I light my match, and instead of reaching down and lighting a tinder bundle, I stick the match upright. I just stick it into the ground. And because it has a 15-second burn, it gives me ample time to grab my bundle of dry twigs or birch bark, whatever I'm using that day, and I just pile it right on top of that match that's still flaring up and sticking up right in the ground. That method works quite well. So again, these matches are good. They're good. However, if you hang on to them too long, you may run into trouble. So that's where it gets conflicting, because these things are very expensive. So you're not going to use them nonchalantly, shall we say. You're going to be a little bit you're going to have your reservations on how much you're going to use them. However, at the same token, you have to use them up, because if they get too old, they're no longer reliable. And that's been my experience. So great matches, but you gotta spend a lot of money to use them up, even if you don't really want to use them up, because they're a bit of a specialty thing, right? But that's okay, because I use a lot of different matches. And I'm going to show you, because this right here, this box of matches, these are cheap dollar store matches. I use these. Hey, no problem. I got no problems using cheap dollar store matches. Literally, a couple of bucks at the dollar store. I mean, they light, they work, they do what they're supposed to do. And I use them. I'm out in the back country doing my adventures. Hey, if you can keep them dry, why not use cheap matches? But I'm going to share with you guys something else about these cheap matches. I'm going to do that right now. And I'm going to show you how you can turn your cheap dollar store matches into long burning, storm-worthy matches. Let's get started right now. So what you need is a couple of cheap matches. I'm going to purposely look for one that has got a larger tip because they're cheap matches, they're not consistent. Let's see if I can pull one out to show you. Yeah, there's one. You can see some of these have a larger tip than others. So anyways, no matter. So you're going to need a couple of matches, 1-inch duct tape, and get my knife ready here because I'm going to need a knife as well. I'm going to take my duct tape and pull that out, pull it open a little bit. I'm going to take my two matches, I'm going to put them together. I'm going to offset. Yeah, see, I can see this one here, the tip is smaller than that one. Let's go with a larger tip. And put them together, but when I say together, I'm offsetting the tip just because I want the matchstick itself to be as tight as possible. Then I'm going to take my duct tape, 1-inch wide duct tape, and I stick my two matches in there like so. I'm going to wrap that around. I feel awkward because I got the camera in front of my hands here. And then I'm going to wrap that around completely. I could have used a little bit more tape, but this will work. All right. That is a long burn stormproof match. I'll show you. All right. Let's light this sucker. Now you want to tip it a little bit and make these matches because you want that flame to catch that duct tape, because the duct tape is flammable. The glue that's in duct tape is very flammable, and that is an insane looking flame. Look how large this flame is, and it burns quite well. I mean, hey, it's not going out, right? Like if I really wanted to put it out, I can put it out, but you can see just by swinging around, in no way is it being affected all that much. Alright, and it keeps on burning. Burns good. And you can imagine if I would have put maybe a second wrap of the duct tape, it'd be more accelerant. That's part of the match. I'm going to hold on to it as long as I can. Getting close to my fingertips. Oh, getting to near the end. We're going to call it good. One minute and 23 seconds is what I got out of that match. Nothing wrong with a minute 23 seconds of burn time on a match. And this came from just cheap dollar store matches. So the Uco brand, great stuff. You're going to pay a lot of money, and you have to use them up. Or you know what, I can spend 10 minutes here while drinking my coffee, and I can fill up my little container full of dollar store matches that'll burn for, let's call it a minute and a half. What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. That's a hack right there that is available to anybody, and you should practice it, because why the hell not? Okay, you're now waiting for the Amazon delivery parcel to show up at your door. Go to the dollar store, buy some cheap matches. Go to the hardware store if you don't already have. Get some 1-inch duct tape, and you're off to the races. Now, those are for the wooden matches. But back in the day, paper matches. I used paper matches for many, many years, because paper matches were free everywhere. At one point, you could not, any gas station, corner store, hotel lobby, it didn't matter where you went, there was a bowl next to the cash register full of paper matches free for the taking. It was free advertisements for all businesses out there. And when you stepped up to the counter, you just reached down, you grabbed 2-3 books of paper matches, stuck them in your pocket. Now, I used paper matches for a long time. I quit using them, but probably because I started playing with these ferro rod things and stuff like that. There's so many options nowadays. However, if you can keep these dry, you can light a fire in all kinds of weather systems. And actually what I used to do is when I used to go to buy some lures, a lot of lures come in a little Ziploc baggie. And I used to keep those little Ziploc baggies to put my paper matches in to keep them dry. That's all you need. You need to just stick them in a Ziploc bag, and they're good. Very short stem. However, it's a little bit trickier, but it's not a problem. Actually, this is what I used to do back in the day. Instead of striking away from you, which is what you should do, because sometimes you get a chunk blows off and takes off, I used to strike towards me. You strike like that, and then you used to put your hand together and cup it. Ayoy. And that's the problem with paper matches. You can't play around. You got to be quick, right? You just cup it with your hand, and you can go into your tinder bundle and light your fire. However, there's another method, and if you take your book of matches and you fold the flap so that it's nice and straight, then you take, say, a couple of matches. I'm going to take 2 of them. I'm going to bend them over completely around, and then you flip it. Then when you take your book of matches and you go like that, you can hold it. Now you can take that book of matches and you can slide it under your bundle of dry twigs. You kind of lift your bundle, you slide the whole book underneath it, drop it, and you start your fire like that. What you get with this method is you as it starts, your tinder bundle, if it gets flared up, the rest of the matches will eventually ignite, and you get like that secondary burn to help you along. The obvious problem with that is, well, it's a one-shot deal. 1 book of matches, 1 fire light. That's the obvious problem to that. However, going back to paper matches, dirt cheap, in many cases free. So keep paper matches. All right, let's go back to my can of beaver nuts. My metal can of beaver nuts. I remember this can from when I was a young boy. This can was on the top shelf in my father's camp. I remember this can of matches. And many years later, as an adult, and my wife and I, we built our camp up north, and we used our camp. We had it for 16 years, and then we sold it. We enjoyed it out there. It had a lot of fun. And when we sold it, obviously we removed all the of our personal items out of it. And when we were going through the cupboards, I came across this stupid can. And I was like, what the hell? And I remember looking, I said, this is the can that was in my father's camp. But here's the thing. My father loved going to camp. So this is what happened. This is the only explanation. My father took this can. He had it at his place, at his house somewhere. And he decided to bring it to my camp. And he stuck it on the shelf in the cupboard. Exactly like it was in his camp. That's what happened. My father came to camp. He loved going to camp. And that's what happened. Guaranteed. There's no other explanation. These things did not teleport through time into my camp. So the can came back home. And I put it away in my gear and all that. And because Tiger Streamer asked about making a match video. Well, thank you very much for the question, by the way, Tiger. I thought this was a perfect opportunity to play around with these matches. So like I said, I'm estimating these matches to be approximately 40 years old. Now let's have a look here. You can clearly see there's some discoloration going on with that match. These are blue and red tip strike anywhere matches, and back in the day, these were the best strike anywhere matches you can buy. You can still buy strike anywhere matches today, and I've used some of them, and they're not like they used to be. These things here, I remember I used to light these on anything. I used to light these on my teeth. I used to strike them on my teeth. On my zipper, that was a big one. You know, you pulled on your jeans there, you pulled the flap, your zipper flap over, and you struck it on your zipper. That was a common way of striking these. But any rough surface, and they worked really well. But we're going to see after 40 years if they're still working well or not. So let's start with a flame. Well, they're certainly still flammable. No problem there. Yeah. Okay, so now, the other thing I'm going to mention that I just noticed with these matches, if I take a brand new wooden match here, and I put it next to the old one, and it's the discoloration. You can clearly see the old match has turned yellow over time. Alright, so now we know it works, but will it strike on its own? You gotta remember, this is 40 years. I guarantee you, I guarantee you the Yuko matches are not going to work in 40 years from now. I'm positive of that. All right. Let's, I got my striking surface. Oh, look at that. It tried, but it didn't go. Not looking good. There we go. This one went, yeah. So that one went. The other match, it didn't go. It struggled. It tried, but it didn't accomplish it. So it does work on the striking surface. Oh, by the way, these strikers, you can buy those separately. I did not know this until recently, but you can go out and buy these separately. However, 220 grit sandpaper will work at least with most of them anyways. All right, let's grab a rough surface like a piece of wood. Let's see here, I got my strop is handy here. Let's see if I can make this happen on a strop. Oh yeah, that completely deteriorated. It's all turned to dust. Let's try this again. I won't push as hard. Not looking good. Yep. Not looking good. So the 40-year-old matches, although they're still flammable, they're no longer strike anywhere matches. Well, I don't know. Let's try the old school method, which was to strike it on your thumbnail. If you don't, I've never seen that. You put the match tight in your fist like that. Take your thumbnail. The longer your thumbnail, the better. And then you just scratch it. Oh, you see that smoke? It tried to go. I think I'd be better off to go with my cheap dollar store matches, my little hack, and wrap some duct tape. Which, by the way, you can also go one step further on the dollar store home hack for stormproof matches. You can make them waterproof, and that's to take some paraffin. Some good old paraffin wax. Melt some paraffin wax and you take that match and you do like a fast dip in the melted paraffin wax. That leaves a very thin coating of wax on your match, and now you have a waterproof match. So if you do the hack trick and you go one step further and do the paraffin dip, you got yourself a pretty formidable match there. So if this video has lit the fire under your ass, I suggest you click on the card that's on the screen right now, and that's another fire related video, and I'll see you over there. Thanks so much for hanging out.